Hello, everyone. This is Floyd Zuber, and I want to talk to you about Nick Freitas. He's a Republican who somehow got elected to the Virginia House of Delegates and represents the 30th District, comprised of Madison County, Orange County, and the southern half of Culpeper County. So, Nick, I just want to know something. If I'm not a Republican, would you represent me? I don't share whatever it is that you call the Republican creed, but I do believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Probably not the way you interpret those concepts, by limiting the scope of its meaning and leaving it open to abuse. Instead of distorting each of those principles, you might try a holistic approach just to see how it works when you fit them together. You're taking life and liberty as separate individual issues, and I'm not sure what kind of happiness it is that you're pursuing. You only claim to care about life that hasn't left the womb yet, but when it does, you can't be bothered that the child has to struggle to survive this country's inequities that you place before it. There are children in this country of plenty who have inadequate food to eat during the school day and have difficulties learning. Then they get blamed for being uneducated. And when they try to get help so they can progress beyond their meager existence, you and the rest of the Republicans can't be bothered. How many children have had to suffer the shooting massacres that you do nothing about? I can't think of anything you've done to protect the right to life of innocent school children. If you have, let me know. In fact, let everyone know. Nick Freitas, will you represent the child unwanted by anyone, especially Republicans? Earlier this year, Trump treated the COVID-19 pandemic as just another inconvenience to his TV ratings and deliberately lied when he claimed that the deaths would be close to zero. Now, 175,000 plus deaths later, if he had done his job instead of trying to host a reality TV program, we wouldn't have the new expectation of 300,000 deaths, which is 100,000 more than the original high estimate from the medical professionals he deliberately chose not to listen to. And what did you do, Nick? Did you take an early lead to warn and protect us? Or did you deliberately delay to score political points at the expense of the vulnerable and the gullible? Did you listen to any medical professionals? Who were you really listening to when the pandemic began and people started to die? How many deaths do you want to take credit for? But, Nick, will you represent me? The other lives that you seem to think are insignificant have a color that's different than white. We heard very little from you that Black Lives Matter. You make the typical Republican gratuitous gestures like thoughts and prayers, and then immediately proceed to blame the victims of the atrocities that are propagated by the system and the individuals that you not only support, but honor in a way that distorts any sense of moral and ethical decency. The right to those black lives has been extinguished by some perverted perception that the right to liberty is an excuse for the right to pursue happiness and can simply be accomplished by placing a knee on the neck of an innocent black man, like George Floyd. But Nick, will you represent me? We might as well talk about another aspect of the right to life. That's health. It has a very close proximity to life. You can say that it's a prerequisite. If your health is shot, pretty much so is your life and happiness. Nick, what have you and the Republicans offered Americans for healthcare options that would prevent us from having to make a decision between dying and going bankrupt, and then leaving a mountain of debt to our families? Something that you and your friends need to know is that you cannot pursue happiness when you're dead or bankrupt. Instead of thinking about this in theoretical and ideological terms, you might want to try to see how it actually works. I strongly suggest that you get actual, factual data to see how the public is really affected instead of relying on your well-off friends for advice. I know you won't take the difficult path for one of two reasons. You're incapable of doing that kind of analysis, or you don't want your ideology challenged. Maybe both are right. A better teacher for someone like you would be to have a personal experience with bankruptcy. If you need help in that area, you can always get the best advice from Trump. But Nick Freitas, will you represent me? So what happens now when that vision of life that each of us has is no longer relevant? No longer relevant in the sense that either we're dead or so damaged that the quality of life is severely diminished to the point of despair. The liberty part becomes a target for abuse from intentional ambiguity. What exactly does liberty mean? It's lost its meaning. There's a dictionary definition for it, but how many bother to read even that? Simply on its own, liberty has no meaning because everyone has their own perception of it, and the meaning depends on context and how it's defined in that context. It's a nice word that the public doesn't understand and is unwilling to understand. So now that you know something about me, would you still represent me? Would you represent people like me? Or would you rather continue playing the role of sycophant to the Republican Party hierarchy? It's interesting getting to know you, Nick, and I look forward to learning more. See you soon, but before I go, Nick, will you represent me? No? Why not? In fact, I hope not. If you can't represent all of us, you have no business representing any of us.